There's a recent study that just came out, and the trawl fleet and the fisheries biologists are saying that this study shows a clear link between the Bering Sea heat wave and the recent decline in the Chinook salmon populations. I'm going to show you the study and what exactly it says. But it's also important to note that NOAA, government agency, is also pushing the results of this study. So what exactly does this study say? Let's dive in and read the study. This is the study right here. It's titled, Shifting Stage-Specific Constraints on Productivity Shape Recovery Potential for Yukon River Chinook Salmon. Okay, well, so what does this have to do with a Bering Sea heat wave and reduced Yukon River Chinook populations? Well, let's go to the results here. Here's where it gets really interesting, and here's where they talk about the heat wave when they talk of post-juvenile natural mortality, okay? Here they only have, 2 paragraphs that actually talk about their results for post-juvenile natural mortality. And so what post-juvenile means is when the fish reach the Bering Sea and they're out in the sea for a number of years, say about 5 years, before they swim back upriver to go spawn, okay? They showed 2 data points, and that's it. Here they show a graph of Bering Sea temperature, right here, and then they show annual natural mortality of Chinook salmon. All they're showing is relatively low Bering Sea temperature here, and what they show is between the years of 2016 and 2020, there's an increase in temperature in the Bering Sea. Okay, and then they show there's a corresponding increased mortality or increased death rate of salmon during and right after what they're calling the heat wave here. That's it. That's all the data they have. And that's all the data they showed. There's a couple big problems with this data. One problem is something you learn in junior high science class is association does not prove causation. Just because these 2 variables are associated in time does not prove that one causes the other. That should be very clear, yet they talk in their article here as if one causes the other. That's a big problem. The second thing to note here is the actual temperatures of the water. They go from around 2 degrees Celsius to as high as around 6 degrees Celsius. In the heat wave, the temperature increased up to about 6 degrees Celsius. So you should ask yourself this next question: what is the optimal temperature for a king salmon or a Chinook salmon? There's actually been a lot of research on this. As we all know, Chinook salmon do very well in Southeast Alaska. They even do well in Oregon, Washington, even California. That's much warmer temperatures than the Bering Sea. So what does the research say is the optimal temperature for king salmon? It's actually 19 degrees Celsius, which would be completely off this chart, which would be the healthy range for a Chinook salmon. So that's problem number 2. Here's problem number 3 is they only go back to 2003. If you go back further, you look at the persistent variations in the ocean temperature. In fact, from 2000 to 2005, there was actually a significant increase in the ocean temperature in the Bering Sea, yet we did not see an increase in mortality of fish in the subsequent years from 2005 to 2010. There's no increase in Chinook salmon mortality. That's another problem for the study, which they don't address in this. This graph shows the Bering Sea temperature fluctuations over time since the 1980, and what you see is one periodic heat wave after another. But there's been no documented Chinook salmon decline after these prior heat waves. But this study ignores all that past data. Problem number 4 is they did no actual research themselves. They gathered no data and produced no data themselves trying to show a link between ocean temperatures and Chinook salmon or king salmon mortality. They did nothing in the study to show that. 5th problem is if you look at what other fisheries biologists say, periods of low Bering Sea temperature actually create an environment for decreased fish biomass, not increased.
Prior to 2022, temperatures have been relatively warm, but since then they've kind of come back to more closer to the average. During warm years, fish biomass tends to increase, but with return to cold temperatures, we found that our overall fish biomass returned down to previous cold year levels throughout the Bering Sea.
That's the exact opposite of what this study's saying. That's another problem. The next problem is the very next part of their article, which is bycatch and harvest. And it's right here in their study results. What do? They specifically say trawl bycatch and harvest was not a significant factor. Okay, so now we're starting to see the real problem here. I have yet to see research from the fishery biologists that go against the trawl industry. And that's the real problem that we're seeing. All their research consistently produces results that are in favor of the trawl industry and essentially shill for the trawl industry. And it appears that this paper isn't any different. And it's a big problem when we have government agencies like NOAA pushing research like this. Not only does it not prove that a heat wave caused the Chinook salmon mortality on the Yukon River, there's not even a compelling link between the two. And what the fisheries biologists will say, well, maybe it wasn't the Chinook salmon that were stressed out from the increased water temperature, but their prey fish. So the pollock or the herring and other fish like that. Well, here's another problem. This study made no link between the increased water temperatures and decreased prey fish. In fact, the pollock numbers did not go down during the study period, and the pollock fleet did not get any reduction in their allowable harvest. And you'd think that if the Chinook salmon had increased mortality because they didn't have enough food to eat, which pollock is one of their food to eat, you would think that the fisheries biologists would advocate for a reduction in the allowable catch of the trawl fleet. But they didn't. I might have been born and raised on the Kenai Peninsula, but I'm not stupid. I can read this research. I graduated from an Ivy League medical school, so this isn't that hard. What does appear to be pretty obvious is this research article was produced to support the trawl industry. And it becomes a big problem when you can't trust the science. If you can't trust the scientists and their research, and you can't trust government agencies like NOAA who are pushing this narrative, how are we supposed to make informed decisions about what's really going on?